Welcome back to our channel. So in a few weeks, we're going to be leaving on our cross-country journey where we're going to be trail riding and camping across the US with our horses. There's a few things we need to do to start preparing the horses for that change, and one of them is highlining. So if you don't know what highlining is, it's when you stretch a rope in between like two trees or two poles, and you can secure your horse to that rope and they can either move around on it and graze, or you can have them stationary. Today I wanted to do it to where they're stationary, and my main reason for this is because the last time we put our young horse on the highline, he was constantly pulling at it and testing it, and so I just want him to learn how to stand tied and give to the pressure. So right here I'm just securing the tie to where it won't be able to move. And then we have to rig up the highline. So we're in an arena actually to do this, and the reason I chose the arena is I didn't want grass to where the young horse would be wanting to reach down and snatch the grass and pull at the line. So here we just have sand, but Colin uses ratchet straps to tighten the rope. That rope is actually really heavy. It's about 200 feet, and it's hard to pull up and tighten yourself. So the ratchet straps come in handy. I also brought breakaway halters, and the reason for this is if the horse is on the line and they get tangled, that back strap will break and the horse can get free. And at some campgrounds, like, highlining is all you can really do, and the horses will be out on the highline while we're sleeping at night, and so I want them to be able to break free if they get themselves in a bind. Here I'm bringing in the horses, and they started a stampede. There's Ruach and there's Tucker, and they're running in probably thinking that they're gonna get food, but in reality they are gonna work. The first thing we have to do is make sure Ruach's halter fits. This is his breakaway halter for the line. And it could be a little tighter probably, but it will do for today. Today's really just testing things out. I mean, we're still figuring everything out on our own. I do think I need to work on my knots to where the rope doesn't loosen if the horses pull at it. So that's another thing I'm going to have to research. But the line is supposed to be 6 to 7 feet off the ground. And I'm going to put Ruach on first just so he can get his wiggles out, because I'm sure he's going to want to pull at it and he's going to have to figure things out for himself before we bring Tucker in. But I do want to put Tucker on the rope as well, because this is actually a 4-horse high line. And I have thought about just getting 2 separate high lines for them so they don't have to share the same rope. And the reason for this is, as you'll see, I don't want Tucker to have to deal with Ruach here pulling at the rope, and then that rope is going up and down where Tucker is. And so you can see here he's kind of having to figure things out on his own. He's figuring out how to give to the pressure. And everything I've read has said that high lines are great for teaching young horses how to stand tied and just to stand still in general. And so if you can leave them out there for like 20 minutes just on the line, they'll learn pretty quick. Here he's resorted to entertaining himself by chewing on the buckle of the lead rope, which seems super uncomfortable, but oh well. After Ruach calmed down a little bit, we decided to bring Tucker up. And Tucker is about 12 years old now. He's seen some things through life. I don't know if he's actually ever highlined before I had him. I've had him 8 years. But, I mean, he did it like a pro. He stand tied, you know, didn't let Ruach really faze him. And Ruach here, you can see, has gotten a little bit better. He's still just a little bit wiggly, but not too bad. And another thing you can do is we could put a breaker in the middle to where the horses could be loose on either end of the line, but then there's like a stop in the middle to where they can't tangle themselves together. And so that's another thing we have to practice. And I do think the line needed to be a little bit higher now that I'm looking at it, but for today, since it's just a training session, it's all good. And there you can see there are the 2 boys on the high line. So this is what it's going to be like when we're camping at some places that require the high line. Here, Ruach managed to get the halter over his ear. And so I'm just going back to put it on him. And we actually did this the next day too, and he did so much better the next day. He stood quiet. He didn't really move a whole lot. And so it's just nice seeing the progression. Here the boys are just settling in. Ruach's getting the hang of it. It's all good. This is when things turn south. He got too bored. He's probably 15 minutes in now, so he is hitting his limit, and we were about to be done. But he started messing with that, got his head over it, which is a big no-no, so we should have tied it tighter. He freaked out Tucker, then he freaked himself out, and they're both pulling at the line. But overall, I was surprised and happy that the line was able to deal with that and not break. So they did loosen it, and that's probably because my knots weren't the best. I'm still working on my knots. But after that, we decided to call it because they'd already been out there about 15 minutes. And I was like, well, I need to figure out my knots before we do this again. So we took them off, and then we called it a day. But overall, I was pleased with that session. So this is the next day, and I'm going to be doing some groundwork and some new things with Ruach, just once again helping him prepare for the trails. I'm going to be putting a surcingle on him. And Ruach tends to be super friendly and outgoing, but he also tends to want to be in your space a lot. He's just naturally kind of like a pushy horse. So we've been working a lot on that, but here you're going to see me use blocks with him. So he's trying to get his head over me, which is a clear sign of like, okay, you're not understanding that I'm right here. So I use that elbow to block him from doing that. And blocks are an easy way to keep your horse out of your space if you're working in close proximity with them. You just put up your arm so that they can't turn into you. If they were to turn into you, they'd hit your arm. Here's another training technique I'm doing where I'm dipping his head towards me while I tighten the surcingle. This is really useful if you're introducing your horse to something new. And here he's getting distracted, so I'm asking him to turn that head back towards me. The reason you want to do this is if he were to freak out or buck or jump forward, that hind end is going to swing away, just like you saw, and he won't be able to kick me or run me over. So I use that a lot. This is his first reaction to the surcingle, which I was very surprised by initially. I was able to get him back down to a standstill so I could tighten it because it was slipping. But he's had everything on him. I've tied ropes around him to mimic the girth, so I have done things to prepare him for this. So I was a little surprised by his initial response, but this is his first time having something like on him, like a saddle blanket, and then the surcingle like a girth. And he's 2 years old, so he's not going to be ridden anytime soon, but I do want him to get used to the feel of this because I would love to pony him on our trail rides and clip some small saddlebags on him. And also just start getting him used to that feeling of something on his back, so when we do go to ride him, you know, he's done it a million times. So what I'm going to do here a lot is just try to help him accept the surcingle. So like I said, his initial reaction makes me realize that, okay, he's not as accepting of this. There may be some stress involved. With him, he doesn't show like normal signs of anxiety or being overwhelmed, just because he tends to be bubbly and he'll remain that way. But I did pick up on some things with him in this session. So, you know, I haven't had him that long, and so I'm still learning him. He's still learning me. But this session really helped me pick up on the way he's going to communicate if he does feel overwhelmed. And I'm going to use groundwork to help him get over those feelings. And so what's going to happen now is I'm going to ask him to turn towards the fence and away from me, and we're going to see him run through the pressure. So that to me was a sign that he's not paying attention, he's not honing in, he may be a little overwhelmed. So I ask him to turn in towards me this way and go around me, but we'll see him respond again. He's fighting that pressure by responding like that. And so those were two very big indicators to me that he is overwhelmed, he's not being himself, because usually, you know, he'll yield pretty well to those when we do those groundwork exercises without the surcingle. I have some treats here. I went and got treats because I wanted to help him accept it. I'm trying to keep him beside me with my flag and not let me get directly in front of him, because if he were to jump forward, number one, he doesn't see me there and he could easily run me over. So I want to stay to the side of him. And I'm also going to ask him to walk towards me. And I'm using that flag just as a block. And the reason I use the flag is, like I mentioned, he tends to be more in your pocket, kind of pushy. And in situations where you're introducing horses to something new, they can tend to put everything they've learned out of the window. And so I want to make sure I'm enforcing those boundaries I've set, because he could easily ignore them if I didn't have that flag. So I'm asking him to just follow me and walk and come around. This is kind of what I did with him when I put the saddle on him for the first time. There he turns his head and blocks that pressure. So that's another sign that a horse isn't necessarily comfortable, where they don't allow you to get to their side. And so when he did that, I put the flag down, but then I asked again. Here I'm having him move around me just at liberty. He did very well with this, his first time doing that. He went around once, so I asked him to come back to a halt. He didn't buck or anything, so I was like, okay, we'll call it there, because he's still young, he's still a baby. I wanted him to, accept what's going on. I didn't want to overwork him in the instance. So if groundwork is new to you, it's very useful to building a connection with your horse and also setting boundaries for your horse as well. And I have an online course that walks you step by step through some really simple groundwork exercises that can also be very helpful in just building your connection and having an understanding between the two of you. So if you want to check that out, it's at shop.equinehelper.com, and it's the how to gain and maintain your horse's respect through a groundwork course, and I'll put the link in the description and up here on the screen as well.